Thank you. So this is our first Transdisciplinary Alliance and Asia Regional Network webinar series, first webinar series. So good morning again, and good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. And welcome to the inaugural webinar of the ITD Alliance, Asian Regional Network. My name is Seongsook Choi from the University of Edinburgh, the UK, and it is my great pleasure to moderate today's session. First, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us and extend my congratulations to colleagues involved in establishing this new regional network. The establishment of the Asia Regional Network marks an exciting development for the Global Alliance for Transdisciplinarity. Building on the success of the Oceania Regional Network, the Asia Regional Network provides a dedicated platform for researchers, educators, and practitioners and institutions across Asia to strengthen connections and exchange experiences and advance inter and transdisciplinary research, education, and practice. Asia is a home to an extraordinary diversity of cultures, knowledge traditions, and societal contexts and approaches to addressing complex challenges. The Asia Regional Network provides a space for dialogue and collaboration and mutual learning across these diverse contexts, while also strengthening connections with the colleagues, other regions, and the wider global ITD community. Today's webinar, Reimagining Higher Education for Complex Societies, 2 examples from transdisciplinary teaching in Asia, focuses on an issue that is becoming increasingly important around the world. So as a society face complex and interconnected challenges from climate change and sustainability to social inequality and technological transformation, and there's a growing recognition that higher education must equip students not only with the disciplinary expertise, but also with the ability to work across disciplines, engage with diverse forms of knowledge, and address real-world problems collaboratively. So while transdisciplinarity is often discussed in relation to research, today's webinar focuses on a related but equally important question: how do we educate future generations to think and work transdisciplinarily? So what is particularly interesting about today's presentation is that they move beyond individual courses or projects to show how transdisciplinary education can be embedded within institutional structures, curricula, pedagogies, and supervision systems and learning cultures. So today's speakers offer different sort of complementary perspectives from opposite ends of the education spectrum, undergraduate and doctoral education, allowing us to consider how transdisciplinary capacities might be developed throughout the educational journey. So we are very fortunate to hear from 2 leading scholars who will share pioneering examples from Hong Kong and Japan. So Dr. Glos is the Director of Transdisciplinary Undergraduate Programs and Principal Lecturer at Hong Kong Baptist University. She has played a leading role in developing HKBU's innovative transdisciplinary undergraduate programs and has received numerous awards for excellence in teaching and educational innovation. In 2024, she also founded the Community of Practice Transdisciplinary Link to promote transdisciplinary collaboration in Hong Kong. I'd like to also introduce Dr. Yasuhisa Kondo, is professor at the Research Institute for Humanity and Nature and chair of the Global Environmental Studies program at SOKENDAI in Japan. So he will share insights from one of Japan's most distinctive transdisciplinary doctoral programs, reflecting on both its achievements and its challenges. So each speaker will present for approximately 10 to 15 minutes, after which we will open the floor for discussion and questions. I encourage you to post your questions throughout the talks in the chat throughout the presentations, and we will bring as many as possible into discussion period. So with that, it is my great pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Dr. Glos. Please join me welcoming Dr. Glos. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Choi, for your kind introductions. I'm going to share my slides. I believe you can see my slide right now. It's good.
Yeah.
So I followed Dr. Choi's introductions and have to say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all the colleagues around the world. And thank you very much for joining this very, very first webinar. And I'm also very pleased to be the very first speaker and alongside with Professor Kondo from Japan. So as Dr. Choi kindly introduced, my name is Glos, and I'm from the Division of Transdisciplinary Undergraduate Programs at the Hong Kong Baptist University. So before I get started, I would like to share with you one media interview with Dr. Albert Chow, which is our Vice President of Teaching and Learning, which is also here today. So I read about his media interview and I thought this very, very nice line here summarizes rightly about what we do in HKBU. It says here, transdisciplinary educations cultivate students' capacity to see along disciplinary, sectorial, and cultural boundaries, which is also said very, very nicely here. We don't use the word interdisciplinary or cross-disciplinary because at HKBU, we do believe transdisciplinary narrative is something more than that. So what exactly we mean by that? So I remember 2 years ago, we had a task force to actually talk about this. So in these 10 to 15 minutes, I would like to share with you our quick scan of this development of transdisciplinary educations from conceptualizations, how we actually put things in the curriculum, what our motivation, curriculum motivators, what exactly our pedagogy's approach that we have been in place, and of course, also we conclude these presentations by having some of the evaluations and challenges as well. So remember, it's 2 years ago, we had a task force. So we had all the passionate educators came together. We read about 60 to 80 research papers about definition of transdisciplinary educations or interdisciplinary around the world, especially in the Asia Pacific context. The research articles were both in English and Chinese. We had a big debate back then within the task force to actually try to define what exactly is transdisciplinary education. But I remember very clearly we came together and then we agreed. Instead of spending a lot of time trying to define what transdisciplinary educations are commonly understood around the world, why don't we come up with our own conceptualization based on our strength at HKBU and based on what we believe and based on what we want to nurture our students. And that's why we came up with this model of conceptualizations of transdisciplinary educations, which is also approved by HKBU Senate last year. As you can see clearly here, our curriculum motivators are as United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And then we have 3 keywords that is our guiding principle in everything that we do to our students within the transdisciplinary context. Of course, transdisciplinary, transsectorial, and transcultural. And because we focus very much on problem-oriented approach and solution-based approach, and therefore, instead of just focusing on what we teach in the classroom, we focus very much on experiential learning, hopefully to provide a platform for our students to solve the global challenges in the world. Therefore, with these contexts, there are now multiple undergraduate study pathways at HKBU. As you can see, there are structural pathways for school leavers who would like to go for a traditional BBA degree or a Bachelor of Science degree. We also have transdisciplinary pathway as well as individualized pathway. So there are 3 different pathways for undergraduate students at HKBU. So, of course, if those students chose the structural pathway, we actually have a new initiative as well. We introduce 7 transdisciplinary second majors for the students who have actually aimed for the structural pathway, but also would like to broaden their horizons with the transdisciplinary mindset. But within the transdisciplinary pathway and individualized pathway, we do have structured programs we like to tailor-make for students who would like to broaden their perspective. In 2022 and 23 academic year, we established our division called the Division of Transdisciplinary Undergraduate Programs. And this is the office that right now I'm sitting. And in this office, we report to Associate Vice President, Professor William Jung, which is also on this webinar today. And then we also have 5 very dedicated program director responsible for each of the programs. As you can see, arts and technology, global entertainment, innovation and health and social well-being, and individualized major were established 4 years ago. And that's why we have our very first cohort of graduates this year. Our university is 4 years in Hong Kong. And then we also, last year, in academic year, we also launched our 5th transdisciplinary degree, which is Digital Future and Humanities. So right now, with all these 5 programs together, we have 557 students, transdisciplinary students at HKBU, which is equivalent to 10% of our student body. So we have the conceptualizations in place. The next very important is how can we actually reflect that in our curriculum design? So if you look at all these programs here, as I mentioned, our key curriculum motivators are the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And that's why in the first 2 years, we place very strong focus, having a course called Global Challenges, rightly in place in year 1 and year 2. And as you can see in the scaffold here, you will see that each of the programs, there is a pair course. And the reason is that we believe, usually what we do is that in the number 1 course, we'll focus on problem-oriented. So problem-oriented model, where that's 2 course, for example, transdisciplinary collaborations 2, will be the solution-based modules. So we have a pair of problem-oriented and then the solution-based. And that's how we come up with these scaffolds for the curriculum design, which is nicely placed in each of the programs that we do. As I said here, our strong motivations is United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. I'm actually very proud to say we are the first and probably not the only one that have the 9-unit course. 9 unit is about 3 courses, so 3 semester. 9-unit course that very much focus on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So in here, we focus very much on problem-oriented approach, problem-oriented learning, because we don't just educate our students with discipline knowledge, but we provide students with a lots of outdoor experiential activities and unique activities. For example, we have 200 students in this particular course. For example, the picture that you see here, that will focus on SDG 14. So instead of each of the students going through the same classroom lecture, we actually place our students to all different kinds of experiential activities. So we put them all together in many different places. And we also introduce what we call the faculty chit-chat sections, where the students in a week, there's no class, but they are feel free to knock on the doors of 20 HKBU staff, knock on the door and ask them questions about how their disciplines are actually related to sustainability issues. We're also very proud to have a strategic community partner, WWF Hong Kong, who has been with us for 3 years, supporting us. And all the students' work, no matter they come up with a solution or they come up with educational resources, anything that they do that they think they can help the environment will be put in a digital archive. We have a platform called Translearn Bazaar app platform, which is supported by one of our funding body in Hong Kong, Environmental and Conservation Fund. And the extensions of this is that we do not just focus on students on campus. We'll bring all our students every year to our sister institutions under the initiative called One University, Two Campuses. So we'll take all our students to Zhuhai campus to collaborate with students in Zhuhai. And we call them a student's partner because we believe they actually, as a partner with us, they were able to bring something to our community. And then the selected students who are very passionate about SDG, we bring them abroad. We pick them to Western Sydney University, National University, Singapore, as well as Bangkok. And actually this Sunday, we are also heading to Australia as well, again, with our very first cohort of this student as partner study tour. A lot of you might be thinking, so what do actually they do? I would like to share with you one example. So on the left, you see there was a student holding a camera. Her name is Eunice. So Eunice is our students from arts and technology. I remember 2 years ago, when she was a year one, basically, we took her all the way to Australia. We collaborate with Western Sydney University as a university partner. And then we also collaborate with the Hawkesbury River Alliance, which is their community partner in Australia. We examine SDG issues. And remember, that was the very first time, because she was an art student, she was not never really into science, but that was the really first time that she got to understand how water pollutions are like in Australia and how the Australians tackle these environmental challenges. She got the water testing, as you can see there. She was inspired by that. She carried this in her mind, and then when she was in the third year, she went to Bangkok and she further studied a little bit about the water pollutions in Bangkok. On her return, when she came back after 3 years, she decided this is something that she was really very passionate about. So she developed applications, as you can see here, integrate chemistry with arts, with technology to address sustainability issues. So you can imagine this is like a Pokemon Go game. So where the children's or anybody can use this to actually test the water, and then we turn that into a 3D model, and then they actually have a 3D model print as well as a little gift for the children. I believe this is one of the good example to illustrate what we do at HKBU. We not only focus on transdisciplinary, but also the transsectorial and transcultural. And we believe this is how we nurture our students. So that's actually summarize how we turn philosophy into pedagogies. Going to Australia, putting them on the problem-oriented approach, provide students with a real, authentic, contextualized learning environment. As I emphasize many times here, that how students were able to decode the problem, to understand the roots of the problems, and try to think of the solutions that addressed it. And in here, we also measure the integrative from the disciplines, from how they actually connect, how they communicate the discipline and the connections together with the environmental issues. And with that, we also we really would like to see how the reflections actually reflect the learning journey as well. So far, we're very, very proud. After a few years, we have now 500 something undergraduate students. And these transdisciplinary concepts are also well received at HKBU. We have about more than 100 faculty members involved. We've also been really, really supported by our industry and as well as community partners. And we also continue to grow in our overseas university partnership as well. We're actually constantly doing some evaluations work, and we're also very proud to see there is an upward trend in the way how they connect to the experience, discipline, transfer, and also their self-reflection. One thing that we have noticed is that students at this generation probably are very, very used to ad hoc and something that is not really a long spent kind of thing. So we thought probably we need to work a little bit more on their reflections, guiding them how to reflect themselves and how to guiding them how to actually reflect the journey so that they can actually see the true value of these transdisciplinary educations in their future career. So summing up, we are also very, very happy to share with you. We are also very happy to be the first institutional member in Hong Kong and to be part of this launching of the Asia Regional Network. We've been doing this transdisciplinary educations from last year by organizing a summit, and there is also a summit coming up as well. So allow me to do a bit of advertising here. If you can scan the QR code, you will see the summit, and we welcome everybody to Hong Kong so that we can exchange dialogues together. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Glos, for that fascinating presentation. We've heard how Hong Kong Baptist University has developed a comprehensive approach to transdisciplinary undergraduate education, including curriculum design, experiential learning, and partnerships. Partnerships. We now move from undergraduate education to doctoral education, while the institutional context is quite different. Many of the questions are similar, obviously, and how do we prepare students to work across disciplinary boundaries, and how do we support collaborative and problem-oriented learning? Now, how do we maintain academic rigor while pursuing transdisciplinary goals? To explore these questions, it's my pleasure to introduce our second speaker, Professor Yasuhisa Kondo from the Research Institute for Humanity and Nature, and chair of the Global Environmental Studies program at SOKENDAI in Japan. Professor Kondo's work spans archaeological geography, social environmental research, and science and society engagement. And today, he will share insights from what is arguably Japan's most first authentic transdisciplinary doctoral program, and reflecting on both its achievements and its challenges. Professor Kondo, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Choi, to introduce me. So, hello, good afternoon and good morning, everybody. So I'm Yasuhisa Kondo, and today I'm talking about the Global Environmental Studies program at the Graduate University for Advanced Studies, SOKENDAI, Japan. So, as you know, Japan is no more the second best country in both economic and science affairs. However, Japan is still a leading country of socioeconomic issues and problems. For example, the air and pollution, water pollution that we experienced in some 60, 70 years ago, and then natural hazards happen regularly, and also the society is now suffering from aging and depopulation. By the way, the right picture is my family, my daughter and wife, together with their grandparents and great-grandparents family in Aomori. In Japan, the transdisciplinarity is understood in a kind of polyphony. A lot of terms involved in this similar things. So, for example, that is translated to Chogakusai Kenkyu in the left bottom, and also that similar the term is translated to Choi Kenkyu, Gakuyu Kenkyu, Gakusai Kyoso Kenkyu, or Bunyugo Kenkyu in comparison to Ku, Shue, Ku, Yanju in Chinese Mandarin. But still, recently that is also translated as Sogochi. That is appeared in the policy papers. That is to gather the diverse knowledge together to make innovation. That is a national policy. So, in my understanding, based on the Japanese context, transdisciplinary is a combination of interdisciplinarity, particularly between humanity, social, and natural sciences, and also co-creation with societal stakeholders through co-design, co-production, and co-dissemination. So it is always issue-driven and solution-oriented, and that is, as I explained, as Sogochi, converge all kind of diverse knowledge systems, and also mutual learning through co-creation is important. Yes, so this diagram was presented by Ben Shalom and her colleagues in ITD 24. So TD is now transdisciplinary education is understood as a combination of the community-based learning, CBL, and participatory action research, PAR. So CBL is corresponding to the education. So there are at least 10 graduate schools that is a TD flavor graduate programs. So the first graduate program was established in Kyoto University in 2002, and after that, the national governmental policy to reform the graduate education, the increased number of graduate schools are reformed to TD flavored schools one by one, and our school is the 10th establishment in Kyoto and Japan. So we are belonging to SOKENDAI, SOKENDAI is an educational alliance of inter-university institute. The university was founded in 1988 as the first national graduate university in Japan, and now 20 programs based at the 20 inter-university institutes are comprised to the SOKENDAI, and that was reorganized in 2023. And now more than 1,000 faculty members and 560 graduate students are based at this university. And our institute is one of these 20 programs. So our institute, Research Institute for Humanity and Nature, so in Japanese, 総合地球環境学研究所, and that is abbreviated as RIHN or Chikyuken. That institute was established in Kyoto in 2001 as one of the National Inter-University Research Institute under the auspices of Ministry of Education, Culture, Sports, Science and Technology, MEXT. And also it is a constitutional member of the National Institute for Humanities, NIFU. And this institute is conducting inter- and transdisciplinary project to address socio-environmental programs through a lens of humanity and nature interactions. And it launched a PhD program at SOKENDAI in 2023. So now RIHN is running 9 transdisciplinary research project, including the circular economies and also Satoyama landscape, and then nitrogen circulation, and also coral reef conservations, etc., etc. So the main field is in Japan and as well as Asia and Africa. So we are having an exhibition at the National Museum of Science in Tokyo this summer. So if you have a chance to visit Tokyo this summer, please come visit this exhibition. That is the best representation of our research activities. So what shall we humans do is the title. So SOKENDAI's Global Environmental Studies program, GES, offers only a 3-year doctoral program. And it is designed to train independent researchers, and graduates are expected to pursue a wide range of career paths, including opportunities outside academia. So we have now 21 faculty members, including 13 professors and 8 associate professors. So 21% of them are women, and also 14% is international faculty. And enrollment quota is limited to 2 students per academic year. However, we have 13 students. So it means enrollment rate is more than 200%, and the female ratio is 69%, and the international student ratio is 39%. And the tuition fee is reasonable, national rate. And these faculty members are classified belonging to one of the 4 research domains of SOKENDAI: culture and social studies, physical science, life science, and mathematical and information science. And here I show some pictures of students' research activities. The left picture is a translate work in India to survey socio-environmental issues of the garment industry. And the right picture is an interview with indigenous community member in Amazonian tropical forest regarding the use of bushmeat. And one student is doing intercultural comparison of the global viewing among villagers in Cameroon, tropical forest, and the Southeast Island, Japan, and also Atacama Desert, Peru. Chile, I'm sorry. Another student is attempting to understand the umbelt of corals to be understood through interviews with coral research project members. So we offer attentive student support. So faculty collectively take responsibility for research guidance. So that is not the conventional lab system. We are supervising and advising students as a team. So each student is supported by one principal supervisor with one or two sub-supervisors and one advising faculty or mentor. And fully online studies and long-term enrollment are applicable. And we have a good amount of research support funds for students, and also employment opportunity as a research assistant. And also students are eligible for SOKENDAI's research dispatch funding system program, and also eligible for SOKENDAI's specific fellowships, including TD category. So here's a summary and the highlights of our program. So we are doing a doctoral program that is even on a global scale. Is transdisciplinary research serving as a methodological foundation as a measure. And small group on the job training utilizing project field sites, and also highest quality student support system in Japan we offer. And enrollment rate exceeds 200% of capacity. This popularity is expected to continue growing. And we have a high proportion of working students. So this is contributing to lifelong learning and career advancement. And also we have potential to produce a diverse pool of doctoral graduates. But we have still challenges. For example, we must ensure the quality of education, particularly the quality of doctoral dissertations, because that is really a very new enterprise of the have a PhD as a TD native PhD. So that's all. So thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Professor Kondo, for that insightful presentation. Your talk has shown us how kind of transdisciplinary education can be embedded within doctoral training through diverse faculty expertise and project-based research, team supervision, and close engagement with real-world socio-environmental challenges. It is also highlighted some of the opportunities and challenges involved in developing a transdisciplinary graduate program, including the important question of maintaining academic quality while fostering innovation. So thank you very much, both speakers here. Now we can turn to question and answer period. So for those who would like to, ask your questions directly, please do raise your hand, and we will try and, give you access to speak. You can also post your questions in the chat box as well. So let's open the floor to questions. So if you do like to speak, ask questions directly to both speakers or individual speakers, please do so. And in the meantime, I'll just go through some of the chat box and just to see any questions. As I see hands from Gabrielle.
Thank you very much. Thank you both for those really fantastic presentations. I'm sorry, I'm kind of on the move. It was great to see the international engagement in both programs. And I wonder, I have a question for each of you. So Glos, what are the criteria for choosing your international partners? And Kondo-san, why only 2 students per year? And what countries do the international students come from? Thank you.
Thank you, Gabrielle, for the questions. How do we choose international partners? I think first of all, we must share the same common passion and vision for transdisciplinary educations. Because in the partner here, we actually co-design the itinerary and the program with the university partner. So it's not like you have a program and then you send the student through, but we actually have generally co-designed a program together. And we have a very strong belief in our students where it will be basically student-led. So it's not really a faculty-led program. It's a student-led program because we believe in our students and believe that they can actually be the one to lead their own journey. So I think this is how we actually come up with the student with the international partners, and of course when they believe in this student as partner concept together, and that's why ANU is our partner, and we'll be visiting this Sunday as well, this next week. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Gabriel, for the questions. That is very important. So only number of seat is 2. Just the administrative reason. We have 20 programs, and some of the programs cannot meet the similar number because of the losing the popularity. So no applicant. I mean, so we in the reformation in 2023, SOKENDAI decided to have one graduate school in the entire university and set 150 seats as a maximum quota, because that is a matter of the ministry's education's approval. So we cannot move this quota. However, we can take the good student as much as possible we want. So don't worry about this number.
Thank you for the question, Gabriel, and the responses. We have another question here. Please do, Kaichi Michael Chuck. Correct me if I mispronounce your name. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for both wonderful sharing. I just have a general question for both of you. But to preface this, I'm very new to this field, so I'm just going to ask out of ignorance probably. But the first question is, I noticed from Professor Kondo's sharing that in Japan, transdisciplinary training seems to be targeted to graduate students, particularly doctoral students. So I'm curious, is this because transdisciplinary studies require a solid disciplinary foundation as a prerequisite? Then we move on to talking about the transdisciplinary education. So that's my first question. The second question is also regarding employability. I see a lot of the experiential learning and referring to the UN SDG goals and stuff, and they're all very fascinating as student experience, I think. I'm just curious, what are the job prospects, or are there any track record of placements in terms of transdisciplinary graduates? And maybe related to that is, I wonder whether a lack of disciplinary grounding would equate to a lack of employment identity as well. Again, asking out of ignorance. I'm just curious to learn more. Thank you.
Glos, may I speak first? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for your questions. So let me answer the first questions. So in Japan, there are actually undergraduate school, college that has transdisciplinary programs. However, there are still a strong belief that, as you say, a disciplinary foundation is essential for graduate research. So, for example, our case, we ask applicant to the master dissertation, master thesis rooted in one disciplinary specialty, and we can enlarge the students' scope with transdisciplinary opportunities of the field work and also the theoretical development. So that is one thought, and maybe in next generation, the new the TD native education could be possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Kondo, and thank you, Michael. Should I address you, Michael, for your questions as well? I'm speaking in my own capacity, not and from the HKBU, because I would like to share my own personal opinion about this future job market. So to be very honest, our job market now, it's very different from how we were educated when we were in university. So as we all know, everybody, it's every day we're talking about job will disappear. And we're talking about how disruptive AI technology has actually, impacted on this generation. So I personally don't believe that we are actually nurturing our students completely for a job that it will exist in the future. But what we are nurturing is, which I strongly believe, personally believe, is transdisciplinary mindset, which I've seen over these 4 years, where our students are particularly good at teamwork. Because these teamwork, when we put them together with students from across discipline, they are actually able to understand how each other feel, how each other face problem, and how each other solve problem. And I believe this conflict management and negotiation and the communications is really all the transferable skill set that the students will actually need in the future. And of course, our students have been also telling me, so they are the ones who are telling me that they are actually not looking for a permanent job. They are actually very into what we call the slashy, where they can actually slash and doing, multiple things. And I do believe that might be our future as well. So I personally am very echo the university view in we are not just nurturing future ready students. We are nurturing future shaping students where we believe our students will shape the future. And that is also the reasons why we actually came up with the competitions last year called the Role Reimagine competitions. We asked the students, based on your transdisciplinary training and education, how do you envision the future jobs will be? So instead of trying to fit yourself in the job for the future, they can actually create one. So this is my personal humble opinions. And I hope you, yeah, I hope this is able to answer your questions. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much for that. Do we have any more questions in the chat box? And I can't see any at the moment. And then I don't see any hands being raised at the moment. No. Okay, so actually I do have questions. I do have a few, but so I think this question is to both of you, actually. So both of your institutions have moved beyond individual initiatives and invested in institution-wide transdisciplinary education. And what has been the most important factor in making transdisciplinary education sustainable rather than remaining a small-scale experiment, for example? Well, not necessarily small, but Yeah, please go ahead.
Sorry. So it's okay. I will go first. All right. So the question was, how do we make TD education sustainable?
Sustainable.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I believe one of the very important move that our university has done is institutionalize it. So it's not just doing it, one single place and one, faculty in school, but we do have institutionalized, and that's why we came up with this conceptualizations model as a guiding philosophy for anybody, within the university who are passionate in promoting and advocating transdisciplinary education. And I think that is actually very important so that everybody's on the same page and doing the same thing towards, the same goal. And one of the challenge, of course, is the faculty buy-in, which were obviously, I guess it's everywhere, is how we actually get faculties to actually understand the philosophy and trying to do things moving forward. And I believe this is important in terms of sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for a great question. So to make transdisciplinary education in Japan in specific case, we are suffering from the depopulation, that is decrease of the number of students. So, but still we have the social environmental issues in the rural areas and also urban areas or worldwide. So we have, fortunately, we have permanent institute of transdisciplinary education in university. So we need good faculty members and also good students. They produce good quality of transdisciplinary research, and this how can I say, the quality of education and also PhD is makes us advance in progress. So it means in my answer, my answer is the quality of education makes the TDA education sustainable.
Thank you so much for that. And I actually do have a few more questions, but I think that a few questions are coming in just now. So I'll start with the first one from Jessica Wu. So the question here is, Professor Kondo's talk prompted Jessica to think about a broader question. How should we understand the difference between transdisciplinary education and interdisciplinary education? Is a transdisciplinary education simply a more advanced form of interdisciplinary education, or does it represent a fundamentally different educational philosophy?
Thank you very much. So in my understanding, that is also connected to the difference between interdisciplinary research and transdisciplinary research. So in the case of transdisciplinary research, we have the issues to be solved first, and then we tackle this beyond the boundary of the academic disciplines, and also beyond the boundary between academia and the society. So it's kind of a co-creation is a key, or more higher integration of the disciplinary activity is a key for transdisciplinary research. So education could be same. So we need, for example, stakeholder engagement for the on-the-job training process, for example. And the philosophy is also similar. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I have another question here in the chat, for Glos, I think. They're interested in your distinction between future ready and future shaping. And the question who posed, the person works in a secondary context, and the secondary schools are focused on that future ready idea with their curricula. Have you any thoughts on developing skill sets for teachers in secondary schools in the light of the distinction?
Thank you very much for this question.
I get the question properly.
Yes, it's okay. I'm ready to answer this question.
Go ahead,
okay. Yeah, and thank you very much for this question, because I've been also thinking about this as well in my own time. I do think this is important. So in terms of skill set, I think as a secondary school teacher, or as a teacher even in the university, I believe it's actually how we think, how we keep ourselves open mind to allow students making mistakes. That is actually another strong belief, because future shaping, if you ask students to shape the future, we must allow them to understand failing or making mistakes are allowed. If we don't allow them to make mistakes, they are not able to shape any future. That is my belief. So in secondary school context, I would strongly recommend that we do have a celebrations of success, celebrations of attempts, as well as celebrations of failure. So celebration is actually for everybody. Just like when we check the Google map. So whenever I got stuck in the morning, every time it's always recalculating the route. So I feel like this is actually something we could share with the students. So the Google map didn't really make a mistakes. It's just that sometimes we just need to recalculate, and we will get there. And I believe this is something we can educate the younger generations. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks very much for that. I hope that answered your question. The other, excellent, thank you. The other question here is that, thank you for the presentations. I would like to ask, what are the major challenges and barriers in implementing transdisciplinary education and research, and how you overcome them? This question is for Lillian. So I guess this applies to both of you.
Yeah, thank you very much for question. Yeah, this is a very good question, and it's very difficult to answer. Yeah, as I experienced the understandings or evaluations of the TD based activity itself is challenges and barriers. So, yeah, in comparison to, for example, pure sciences or humanities, social sciences, so the outcome of TD-based research is not for so much competitive in, for example, top journals yeah, and also, for example, fundings. So, but we have some social outcomes, but it takes time. The time that is important. So we need time for transforming issues, societies, communities about issues. So it takes time, but the education has a term, fixed term. So we need some outcomes within the fixed term and also fixed term projects. So that is that, and that is no good direct solutions, but still we need to keep communicating with for example, local stakeholders after graduation, after project ends. So we need some kind of follow up, and that makes that TD activities better than kind of continuity of the project and initiatives. So and also students can involve in this kind of continuing initiative. So that will be also good opportunities of education. So that's one experience. That's all. Thank you.
Professor Kondo. And then I think if you ask me about how was the difficulties and barriers in implementing TD education over the past 4 years, I would say three different things. One is operational, one is academic, one is administrative. So I think they're all interlocking. So operational, of course, as I mentioned earlier, faculty buy-in, it's challenging. It's not that faculty do not buy in, but having the same understanding and they're having the same, understanding to buy in, I think that is sometimes a little bit challenging. And in terms of administrative, honestly, it's also very, very important in a university is timetabling. I have to say, because with TD educations, we are basically asking to break all the silos. But the timetabling within the administrative domain is actually very challenging to accommodate students taking multiple subjects to actually achieve their transdisciplinary journey. That is the administrative. And on the academic side, in terms of teaching, I would say assessment, because sometimes transdisciplinary can be a little bit abstract when it comes to assessment. And therefore, a university is constantly working towards this to promote authentic assessment as well as process-based assessment. So it's not just the outcome-based, but it's also the process-based as well. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks very much. We have 5 minutes, and we have a couple more questions here. Anonymous attendee asks, thank you for a great presentation. I wanted to ask both of you if you have any clear guidelines in which you would distinguish transdisciplinary education from interdisciplinary / specialized education. So,
do you have any thoughts? I'm still thinking.
Sorry, the question was that do we have a guideline to
distinguish between transdisciplinary education and interdisciplinary or specialized education?
We have to. Thank you, Professor Kondo. I need to think as well, but I think I would like to borrow the media interview from our vice presidents that we do not really think we should talk too much about interdisciplinary or cross-disciplinary, because transdisciplinary, honestly, it's really something that we believe it will be something very new. And I actually think all of them, but personally, I think all of them, the four definitions have their own value. It's a matter of pedagogy. It's a matter of how we approach it. And eventually it's all bring value to the students, in my personal opinion. But in fact, HKBU, within our division, we are developing a toolkit to actually kind of inspire maybe the educators to implement transdisciplinary educations. So once the toolkit is ready, we'll be lovely to share with everybody so that actually how we do it, you can take it as a reference. Thank you. Professor Kondo, over to you, please.
Yes, thank you, Glos. So our approach is really conventional. So we have, for example, preparing for omnibus style lecture. That is a disciplinary oriented lecture. However, we have the introduction to transdisciplinary approach. So we also introduce transdisciplinary method and theories. So that is really a conventional lecture series. However, we have a mentorship to students. So if they have asked consultation, we advise with transdisciplinary methods, and also we help. We champion their trial and error in transdisciplinary research. So that's just on-the-job training. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have a related question here from Xiaoxian. Thank you for your wonderful presentation. Your students have conducted a lot of transdisciplinary research. I would like to ask, does such research need to follow a unique theory that's related? And does this field have its own methodology? Also, do you teach your students any special methods? If so, in what way? I think this question is for both of you. So whoever, or any one of you would like to respond.
May I respond first? Yeah, thank you very much. And yeah, as I responded before, there are no special only one method. So as I presented, the TD, transdisciplinary itself is a polyphony, so multifaceted. So we have any approaches, similar approaches like systemic theories, or for example, the actual research. So we have kind of the chunk of the different theories and practices. So that's not yet still sorted, but we need some, the textbook for that. Glos?
In our case, I would like to take global challenges as an example. So the way that we teach. Of course, global challenges address United Nations SDG issues, and we have multiple different ways to understand issues. And that is the reasons why every semester we require our students to go to read readings of the discipline that interests them. That's number one. And number two, through the faculty check sections, they actually get to talk to professors as well. So there is no a single theory, but we want our students to be able to expose multiple theory from multiple subjects. And then through their way, how they internalize it. And that's why how the problem-oriented approach comes into the picture. So at the certain weeks, we will then introduce design thinking and system thinking. So it's more like a thinking approach of how the experience that they expose themselves to literature reviews and for the faculty check. And at the certain weeks through design thinking and system thinking, how can then we actually address this question? So in a way, I'm not sure if I'm answering the question, but there's not a unique theory. But then the approach that we do, the methodology, yes. I'm not sure if this is special method, but this is the way that we approach this in our class. I hope I answered your question. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your responses. And the time is, I'm conscious of the time. I think this is 1 minute past. Any last minute question? Yes, Albert?
This is not a question, but since Glos has mentioned me a few times. Okay, I suppose I think I'm supposed to say something. There are a lot of interesting questions. I find a lot of them very intriguing. There was a question about whether we should go deep into a certain disciplinary knowledge at the undergraduate level. That is a question that my colleagues and I at HKBU discuss a lot. Okay, perhaps the goal of transdisciplinary education is more on the cognitive aspects, the nurturing of metacognitive skills like creativity, critical thinking, empathy, that sort of things. It doesn't go against the need for a more in-depth disciplinary knowledge. That's why we are doing the second major. Students still have a first major in which they will get an in-depth dive into a discipline, and then all of them will bring their first major knowledge and skills to the table to address problems in a transdisciplinary context. Secondly, inter versus trans, that is the question that we got to ask a lot. But trans for us is actually something like a one level up. Okay, inter. Well, Professor Kondo has already mentioned in his slides. Okay, inter and trans. Trans, we would like to think when you blend different fields together, when you bring different inquiry methods together, there is a theory. There is a question in the chat box about one single theory, new methodology. When you bring knowledge and inquiry methods of individual disciplines together, something new will emerge. Okay, a new field will emerge. I'm a psychologist. When you put neuroscience and psychology together, neuropsychology is not quite the same as neuroscience and psychology. Okay, it is a new field. So this is how we see it. And then Professor Kondo and Glos also mentioned about the transsectoral collaboration. I like your term, co-creation. Okay, Professor Kondo. I think we are more or less talking about the same thing. So that is another side. When I use the example, neuroscience and psychology, we still stay in academia. But now under the transdisciplinary concept, we would like to bring in the community to co-create. Okay, we need to work with different sectors. And at BU, we also want to bring in different cultural perspectives because we believe that the goal of transdisciplinarity is to address global problems, global challenges, okay, which would require students or even researchers to understand the perspectives of different peoples, okay, different races or different countries at different stages of development. Okay, so this is how we try to distinguish between transdisciplinarity and interdisciplinarity. Within academia, new theories, new methods of inquiry, transsectoral cooperation or community co-creation, and then transcultural elements. Okay, so these are the things that we try to do at BU. And there are interesting comments in the chat box. For example, Dr. Lee Liang talked about the projects in Thailand. Okay, I just looked into the two URLs. I think there is a lot of possibility for us to work together. Thank you.
Thanks very much for your comments and additional comments there. So the time is over, but I'd like to kind of briefly bring Ria, if you are still there, and if you'd like to introduce us a couple of, if you spend about less than a minute. Okay, if Ria is not able to speak, and please have a look at the two links in the chat that the Ria has posted, and there's a training program. So if you are interested in explore that, those are links as well. So let's bring this our first inaugural webinar to a closure. But before we conclude, I would also like to encourage everyone to stay involved in with the ITD Alliance Asia Regional Network. If you would like to hear about future activities, and please join our mailing list. The mailing list of the email address is at the bottom of our webinar poster. And if you're not already a member of the ITD Alliance, I encourage you to explore membership and the opportunities it provides. And we would also welcome ideas of future activities and the webinar topics, and including presentations from colleagues across the region. So thank you so much, everyone, for engaging with us this morning or afternoon and evening, wherever you have joined us from. And so this has been absolutely fascinating conversation. Thank you all so very much. Thank you also to inaugural speakers, Dr. Glos Ho and Professor Kondo.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Seongsook. Thank you, Professor Kondo. Thank you.
Thank you, Glos and Dr. Cha.